Many of you have probably heard the phrase, no glove, no love. Or maybe it should be, no love, no glove. Well, I'm about to tell you about one of the greatest love stories in history between a surgeon and his nurse. But first, we must travel back in time to the 1880s. The surgeons were making their nurses scrub their hands aggressively with dangerous chemicals like carbolic acid and mercuric chloride. This is all because of a Hungarian physician who in 1865 noticed that his patients had a drop in infection rate and deaths after adopting the brilliant idea of having his staff simply wash their hands between patients. The doctor, named Ignaz Semmelweis, was later put into an insane asylum after infuriating many of his colleagues with the idea that their hands could be filthy enough to have germs on them. After being lured into the insane asylum and beaten, he died in the asylum from his wounds. You may be saying right now, this does not sound like a love story. But if we go back to 1880s to Johns Hopkins Hospital, where we meet a surgeon named Dr. William Stewart Holsted, a man torn between his convictions. On one hand, he was determined to prove Semmelweis right, but the extreme hand hygiene had become too hazardous for the nurses, and he had a weakness for one nurse that worked very close to him, named Caroline Hampton. Her hands had become blistered and marred from the chemicals, and she was ready to quit. So Halsted had to think fast, and he went to the Goodyear Rubber Company, and he pleaded with them to make some very thin rubber gloves. He then presented them to Caroline to protect her hands. She was thrilled by the gift that Halsted gave her, and she wore them in the surgical room. And with time, her hands healed, and with Halsted's great relief, she stayed on as his nurse. Rubber gloves were a new thing back then, but eventually they did catch on. Halsted's love for Caroline helped change the world. Caroline would later marry him, and they would become husband and wife. The mercury chloride solution was often used to treat syphilis, which may sound familiar to you if you watch the show called The Nick. This HBO special features Dr. John Thackeray, which is actually based on the real-life William Stewart Halsted, which features many of his advancements in American surgery.